The thunder of humanity. The Vex Imperium had conquered 17 star systems in less than a decade. Their fleets moved with ruthless efficiency, their technology advanced beyond anything the scattered civilizations of the Orion Arm could muster. They were conquerors by nature. Their six-limbed bodies evolved for both combat and command, their society structured around expansion and domination. Supreme Commander Zorix stood on the command deck of the Eternal Dominance, flagship of the Imperium's third expansion fleet. His primary eyes focused on the holographic display of their next target, a small, unassuming solar system at the edge of what their intelligence called human space. Preliminary scans complete, Supreme Commander reported Fleet Coordinator Vexen, her voice carrying the distinctive harmonic undertones of the warrior caste. One habitable planet with a population of approximately 12 million. Minimal orbital defenses. Standard resource extraction operations. Zorix's secondary eyes blinked slowly, a sign of mild disappointment. Another simple conquest. Then, what of these, humans? Our intelligence suggests they control multiple systems. True, Supreme Commander, but they appear fragmented. This colony is isolated, with no major military presence. Our cultural analysts suggest humans are still primitive in their understanding of stellar warfare. They waste resources on internal conflicts and have no unified command structure. Zorix's facial plates shifted into the expression of contemplative superiority that had become his trademark among the fleet. Send the standard ultimatum. Surrender or annihilation. Have the assault carriers prepare for orbital bombardment. Yes, Supreme Commander. The message was transmitted toward the human colony, a declaration of the Imperium's arrival and the futility of resistance. It was a formality Zorix had performed dozens of times. Most species chose surrender. Those that didn't survived only long enough to regret their decision. The response came 3 hours later, not from the colony, but from somewhere else entirely. Supreme Commander, Vexen's voice had lost its confident edge. We've detected a vessel entering the system. It's large. Zorix moved toward the tactical display. His interest finally peaked. Define large, Coordinator. Nearly 2 kilometers in length. Configuration unknown. Vexen's claws clicked nervously against her control panel. It appears to be a warship. The tactical display updated, showing the newcomer. It was unlike any vessel Zorix had encountered. A massive angular behemoth of dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No visible weapon emplacements, no external engines, just smooth, featureless hull plates adorned with a simple symbol, a stylized planet with a lightning bolt across it. Curious, Zorix said, genuine intrigue in his voice for the first time in months. A single ship? Are they so primitive they believe one vessel can stand against a fleet? Or perhaps it's a diplomatic vessel? The answer came moments later when the human ship broadcast on all frequencies, in perfect Vex language. Attention Vex Imperium forces. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Force vessel Thunder of Terra. You have entered restricted space and threatened a protected human settlement. You will power down your weapons, withdraw your forces, and leave this system immediately. This is your only warning. Silence fell across the command deck. Then, slowly, Zorix began to laugh, a rasping, clicking sound that rippled through his thorax. Arrogance, he said, is universal among lesser species. Coordinator, have attack groups 1 through 6 surround this Thunder vessel. Weapons free. Yes, Supreme Commander. 72 Vex warships, corvettes, destroyers, and light cruisers broke formation and accelerated toward the human vessel. They moved with practiced precision, arranging themselves in the Imperium's famous Sphere of Death formation, designed to trap enemies in a crossfire from all directions. Zorix watched with mild amusement. This would be over quickly, and he could return to the tedium of planetary conquest. The Vex ships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma lances, disruptor beams, and graviton torpedoes converging on the human vessel from all directions. The barrage was enough to crack a small moon. The human ship didn't move. It didn't deploy countermeasures. It simply absorbed the assault. "Impossible," whispered Vexen. When the energy dissipated, the thunder of Terra remained intact. Not just intact, untouched. Its dark hull showed no signs of damage whatsoever. "Scan again," ordered Zorix, his amusement evaporating. There must be an explanation. Before the scans could complete, the human ship responded. A series of rectangular ports opened along its length, revealing what could only be weapon emplacements. They glowed with a cold blue light. "Evasive maneuvers," Zorix commanded, but it was too late. The thunder of Terra fired. Not a barrage, not a spread of missiles, but a single focused beam that cut through space like a scalpel. It struck the lead Vex destroyer, and there was no explosion, no debris. The ship simply ceased to exist, as if it had never been there at all. Shock paralyzed the command deck. In 300 years of Imperium expansion, no Vex warship had ever been destroyed so completely, so effortlessly. The human vessel fired again, and again, each shot precise, each shot eliminating a Vex ship entirely. No wreckage, no escape pods, just absence where once there had been a warship. "All ships, full retreat," Zorix ordered, his voice uncharacteristically strained. "Return to defensive formation around the eternal dominance." The surviving Vex ships scrambled to comply, but the thunder of Terra continued its methodical attack. With each shot, another Imperium vessel vanished from existence. Within minutes, 43 ships, more than half the attack force, were gone. "Supreme Commander," Vexen's voice was barely audible. "The human ship is broadcasting again." The same calm, measured voice of Captain Vasquez filled the command deck. "Your attack has been noted and logged as an act of war against humanity. I say again, power down your weapons, withdraw your forces, and leave this system immediately." Zorix stared at the tactical display, watching as his ships, the pride of the Imperium, flood before a single enemy vessel. His primary heart pounded against his chest plates. This was not possible. The Vex were superior. They had conquered dozens of species across hundreds of light years. Yet the evidence was undeniable. This human warship wielded technology that made the Imperium's most advanced weapons look primitive by comparison. "Signal our withdrawal," Zorix finally ordered, the words bitter in his throat. "All ships to prepare for jump to the rallying point." As the Vex fleet began its retreat, Zorix couldn't tear his eyes from the image of the thunder of Terra, implacable, mysterious, and terrifying in its restraint. It had destroyed over half his fleet and could clearly eliminate the rest, yet it simply watched them flee. "They're letting us go," Vexen said, voicing the thought that haunted Zorix. "Yes," the Supreme Commander replied. "And that, Coordinator, is what frightens me most of all." The Eternal Dominance entered hyperspace, leaving behind the human colony and the devastating first encounter with humanity's defenses. But Zorix knew with cold certainty that this was merely the beginning. The Imperium had awakened something they did not understand, and for the first time in centuries, the future seemed uncertain. As his ship accelerated away from the human system, Supreme Commander Zorix issued a priority transmission to the Imperial High Command. "First contact with humans has failed. Recommend immediate reassessment of expansion plans. These creatures are not what we thought they were." The price of arrogance. The Imperial High Command of the Vex Imperium convened an emergency session aboard the orbital fortress Indomitable Will. The chamber was a marvel of Vex architecture, a vast hexagonal space with walls of living crystal that changed color with the emotional tenor of the room. Today, they pulsed a deep crimson, reflecting the anger and humiliation of the 12 high commanders gathered around the central strategy pit. Supreme Commander Zorix stood at attention, his posture rigid despite the exhaustion of a 3-day hyperspace journey. He had just finished presenting his account of the encounter with the human warship, an account that had been met with disbelief, skepticism, and thinly veiled accusations of cowardice. High Commander Zovax, eldest of the Council and keeper of the Imperial War Doctrine, fixed his primary eyes on Zorix. "You expect us to believe that a single vessel, from a species we have classified as level 3 at best, destroyed half your fleet and forced your retreat." "I have provided the sensor logs, High Commander," Zorix replied evenly. "The data is clear." "Data can be manipulated," hissed Zovax. "Cowardice cannot be hidden." Before Zorix could defend himself, another voice spoke, softer, but carrying weight that silenced even Zovax. It belonged to Nexara, Director of Imperial Intelligence, and the only female to ever hold a seat on the High Command. "The logs have been authenticated," she said, her secondary limbs gracefully manipulating a personal data terminal. "What's more, we have intercepted human communications that corroborate elements of Supreme Commander Zorix's report." The crystal walls shifted slightly toward orange as surprise rippled through the council. "What communications?" demanded Zovax. Nexara's facial plates arranged themselves in an expression of thoughtful concern. "It seems the human vessel Thunder of Terra is what they call a demonstration ship, a single example of their military capability, sent deliberately to our expansion front." "A demonstration." Zorix felt his primary heart skip. "You mean they knew we were coming?" "Not specifically," Nexara clarified, "but they have been observing our conquest pattern for some time. The Thunder was positioned to intercept any Imperium force that threatened our outer colonies." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans had anticipated them, studied them, and prepared accordingly. "There is more," Nexara continued. "Our analysis of the weapon signatures suggests technology far beyond our current understanding. The humans appear to have developed what our scientists can only describe as localized reality manipulation." "Impossible," growled Zovax. "And yet we have 53 missing warships that would suggest otherwise," Nexara replied. High Commander Vorix, the youngest council member and commander of the Imperium's 7th Fleet, leaned forward. "What do we know of their numbers, their military structure?" Nexara's secondary eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of uncertainty rare for the intelligence director. "Less than I would like. They control approximately 37 star systems that we know of, though their exact territorial boundaries are unclear. Their military appears decentralized but highly coordinated, and—" She hesitated. "Speak freely, Director," urged Forex. "We believe the Thunder of Terra is not unique. Intercepted communications reference at least a dozen similar vessels, possibly more." The crystal walls darkened to deep burgundy as fear, an emotion rarely acknowledged in Vex military circles, permeated the room. "Then we must strike now," declared Zovax, rising to his full height. "Before they can mobilize more of these ships, we will assemble the 1st, 3rd, and 5th fleets, over 300 warships. No single vessel, no matter how advanced, can withstand such force." Vorex clicked his mandibles skeptically. "And if they have more than one?" "Then we adapt," Zovax snarled. "We are the Vex Imperium. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We conquer, or we die." The crystal walls pulsed brighter in response to his fervor. Most of the council chittered in agreement, the prospect of a decisive battle appealing to their warrior instincts. Only Nexara remained silent, her eyes fixed on her data terminal. 3 weeks later, Supreme Commander Zorix stood once again on the command deck of the Eternal Dominance, but this time he was not alone. His ship was but one of 327 vessels assembled for what High Command had designated Operation Decisive Superiority. The target, the same human colony system where the Thunder of Terra had been encountered. "All ships report ready, Supreme Commander," announced Vexen, her voice steady despite the tension visible in her posture. Zorix acknowledged with a curt nod. He had been given a chance to redeem himself, to lead the largest fleet in Imperium history against the humans and erase the stain of his previous defeat. Yet doubt gnawed at him like a parasite. "Launch the probe drones," he ordered. Full system scan before we commit the fleet. The drones, small, stealthy vessels designed for reconnaissance, streaked ahead of the main fleet, their advanced sensors sweeping the human system for any sign of defense forces. They reported back within the hour. Supreme Commander, Vexen's voice was tight with barely controlled alarm. The drones have detected multiple large vessels in orbit around the human colony. The tactical display updated to show not one, but 7 ships resembling the thunder of Terra, each massive, each radiating the same power signatures that had decimated his fleet before. 7, Zorix whispered. 7 against 300. We still hold the advantage of numbers. There's more, Vexen continued. The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're requesting communication. Zorix's facial plates shifted in surprise. Put it through. The holographic projector flickered to life, displaying a human face, female, from what Zorix understood of their dimorphism, with dark skin and silver-streaked hair pulled back tightly from her face. She wore a uniform adorned with symbols that presumably denoted high rank. This is Admiral Helena Chen, commanding officer of the Terran Defense Force 7th Fleet, she began, her voice calm but authoritative. I am speaking directly to whoever commands the Vex Armada currently positioned at the edge of this system. Zorix stepped forward, allowing the ship's sensors to capture his image for transmission. I am Supreme Commander Zorix of the Vex Imperium. You face the combined might of our 1st, 3rd, and 5th fleets. Your demonstration ship may have surprised us once, but we have come prepared for your technology. Something flickered across the human's face. Not fear, as Zorix had expected, but something closer to disappointment. Supreme Commander, Admiral Chen replied, the vessel you encountered previously was not a demonstration of our military capability. It was a diplomatic escort ship, one of our older models, assigned to protect our outlying colonies while we assessed your civilization's intentions. Zorix's mandibles clicked in disbelief. You expect me to believe? What you believe is irrelevant, Chen interrupted. What matters is that you understand your situation clearly. The 7 ships you now detect are actual warships, first-line defensive units of the Terran Defense Force. As if to emphasize her point, the tactical display updated again as the human vessels shifted position. They moved with impossible speed, arranging themselves in a formation that somehow seemed both defensive and threatening. We did not seek this conflict, Chen continued. We have observed your expansion for years without interference, hoping your civilization would outgrow its conquistador phase without requiring our intervention. That hope has proven optimistic. Zorix felt his primary heart racing. There was something in the human's tone, not arrogance, not threat, but a weary certainty that unnerved him more than any battle cry could have. You speak as if you have the advantage, he said, struggling to maintain his composure. Your 7 ships, however advanced, cannot hope to defeat over 300 of ours. Admiral Chen sighed. Supreme Commander, I'm authorized to offer you one opportunity to withdraw your forces and engage in diplomatic contact. The alternative is not something either of us should desire. Zorix's secondary limbs twitched with indignation. You threaten the Vex Imperium with extinction. No, Chen replied, her expression softening slightly. I'm trying to prevent yours. Before Zorix could respond, new alerts flashed across his tactical display. Spatial distortions were forming throughout the system, dozens of them, then hundreds. Supreme Commander, Vexen's voice cracked with panic. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. They're everywhere. The void around the Vex fleet erupted with light as vessel after vessel materialized. Human warships of varying designs, but all bearing the same distinctive energy signatures as the thunder of Terra. Not 7 ships, not 70, hundreds, then thousands, until the Vex fleet found itself surrounded by a force that dwarfed their own. 327 ships is an impressive commitment of force, Admiral Chen said quietly. For us, it represents approximately 2% of the Terran Defense Force's active duty fleet. Zorik stared at the tactical display in stunned silence. It was impossible. No species could maintain a fleet of that size, with technology so advanced. The resources required, the industrial capacity needed. "What we're showing you is real, Supreme Commander," Chen said, as if reading his thoughts. "Humanity united centuries ago, not out of conquest but necessity. We've encountered other expansionist empires before yours. Some became allies, others chose extinction. The choice is yours." In that moment, Supreme Commander Zorix of the Vex Imperium, conqueror of 17 star systems, destroyer of civilizations, understood with perfect clarity that he stood at a crossroads of history. His next words would determine not just his fate, but potentially the survival of his entire species. "Admiral Chen," he said, his voice steadier than he felt, "the Vex Imperium would welcome the opportunity for diplomatic discussion." The human's expression remained impassive, but Zorix thought he detected a slight relaxation around her eyes. "A wise decision, Supreme Commander. We will transmit coordinates for a neutral meeting location. Come with no more than 3 vessels. We will do the same." As the transmission ended, Zorix turned to find the command deck utterly silent, every Vex officer staring at him, with expressions ranging from shock to horror to reluctant understanding. "Signal the fleet," he ordered quietly. "All ships to stand down. Prepare my shuttle and a diplomatic contingent." "Supreme Commander," Vexen began hesitantly, "the High Command will view this as—" "The High Command is not here," Zorix interrupted. "They did not see what we just witnessed. The Imperium has survived for 1,000 years because we are pragmatic. Coordinator, today, pragmatism demands we acknowledge a simple truth. We are not the superior force we believed ourselves to be." As the massive Vex fleet began the process of powering down its weapon systems, Zorix stared at the image of the human warships surrounding his forces, sleek, powerful, and showing remarkable restraint despite their overwhelming advantage. "We believed ourselves to be conquerors," he murmured, almost to himself. "But perhaps we have been merely unopposed. Until now." The first diplomatic contact between the Vex Imperium and humanity would begin the next day, a meeting that would reshape the power dynamics of the galaxy and forever change how the Vex understood their place in the cosmic order. For Supreme Commander Zorix, one thing was already certain. The age of easy conquest had ended, and a new era of coexistence, willing or otherwise, had begun. The Vex had learned what so many species before them had discovered. When humanity was finally roused to action, the universe trembled.